up, everybody? Welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drewbie Wilson, with more than 2 decades in the industry. I've seen it, lived through it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing it to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community. Because let's be honest, sales is the greatest industry on the planet. Doesn't matter where you come from, what personality type, who you've been. You can create an amazing life in sales. Today's guest, no stranger to the journey, my new friend, Mr. Mitch Carson. Welcome to the show, sir.
It's a privilege to be here. I love talking sales. This has been my life. It's paid for my life, and a good life it's been.
Indeed, sir. And I know we've had the pleasure of connecting offline, but I want to jump right into it for the listeners, man. Let's hear your wildest sales story.
Oh my gosh. I would have to go back to selling one-to-one canvassing, selling siding when I was 15 years old, door-to-door selling. And I think some of the best salespeople in the world are groomed through the hardest type of rejection. And if you have gone through a glass barrier of selling, number one, and then you are stepping through the landmines of hard conditions, and you endure that, you don't step on the landmine and blow yourself up, the riches are vast. And at 15, it was probably the hardest sales job I ever did. Walking, smiling, and dialing was years later. Knocking on the door to door, and having people get off my property, to having guns drawn on me. What are you doing at my door? To, the horny housewife that wants to invite me in, or husband's off, whatever. All of that in between was an education about human nature and how to connect with people, because connecting with people is the key to selling them, to unwrapping that onion, removing that onion skin to get to where you need to go. And if you can unravel that package, all the metaphors in the world, and get to the core, you can then sell them. But sometimes everybody's got an armor on their body. And how do you get them to relax so you can engage them? And then surgically extract their credit card and take their money. That's what I call it.
No, and that's one of the funnest things. So you get into sales at 15, you're knocking doors, selling siding. Like, what at that time, because I would imagine 15 years old, you can't get away with that anymore. They get you with child labor laws. So in the days when you were able to go and knock doors and sell stuff at 15 and canvas, what was your main process? Like, how did you try to go about building that rapport quickly and not getting shown off the porch in a less than kind way?
It wasn't a fancy parlay of words. It was looking at, let's say, the lady who answered the door. Most of the time it was the wife who had answered the door. And I cleaned my shoes off at the door. I stepped back and forth. It was a nonverbal cue. I did not come up with this. I learned about this from someone else, where I pretended like I was cleaning my shoes off back and forth, walking with the mat, and I was stepping inside. That signaled to them I'm coming in. I'm breaking through that barrier, that unofficial barrier to my money. I'm on my way to collect my money. And for 15, I wasn't selling the siding. I was making the appointment for the salesperson to come in and close them. But I would do the walk around of the house, preliminary walk around, and just take some notes. And then I would hand it off to Bill, who would come in and close them, because each lead was X amount of dollars. I forgot, it was so many years ago. And then each close that came in that Bill was able to close, I got a bonus. So there was a real incentive to be thorough, and to break through that barrier was wiping my shoes off. I said nothing. I just did it. And then I put myself in the mindset that I'm coming in, lady. I'm going to sit down and you're going to drink. You're going to bring me some water. I'm thirsty.
I want to go deeper on this because, Mitch, I think this is a subtle nuance that gets missed, especially on the newer sales guy, but even the seasoned veteran who forgets to do the little things. Because one of the things I've seen happen to a lot of seasoned vets in the sales game is the ego gets them. They get to making some money. They got some cool things going on. They're kind of like living on easy street. and they stop doing those little things like noticing the subtleties or making that initial contact point the way that you mentioned. And I just wiped my feet off. I gave them that subtle cue to, acknowledge what the next part of the process needed to be. So I want to dig a little deeper on that, because I think that can be, I think anybody who's in the door-to-door space, if you didn't take that little cue and write it down and make a note to do that every single time someone answers the door, like, you're messing up. That is just a gem from the ages that still to this day would make a big difference, even for people who aren't selling door to door. Even if you just go to someone's house, wipe your freaking feet off. Your shoes are dirty. This isn't
Right.
a bit like, this is beautiful. So aside from that, what like as you transitioned, because you're not still knocking doors,
No.
what other little cues or little things have you learned to look for, or have you implemented in your processes to kind of transition into the next part of the conversation?
Well, let's look at, I want to challenge us both to look at that you called it a cue. It's a cue that I'm going to come in. I am breaking through this barrier. It's a presumptive position to take.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be extended over into all areas of sales with words. So that was a physical, nonverbal action I took. And this allowed me to break through. And then I would say, you will want to see this, what I'm going to show you. I've got amazing news for you. Then language started to come into play. Language comes in a sales situation. You've got to see this. Don't miss out on what I'm going to present to you today. By now, you're starting to understand this. Then there are a lot of NLP bombs that can be used. At that age, I didn't know about NLP. I just knew about doing the cleaning of the shoes. Let's fast forward what I learned to even cement that point. I have a friend here in Las Vegas where I live who travels to California with a crew. He works 4 months out of the year. He makes 180 to 200 grand selling door to door. Hardest sales there is. He sells termite and pest control door to door for a company in Southern California. And he did it himself for several years. Now he has a crew, so he gets an override, and he continues to go door to door himself. 4 months out of the year. I asked him about what are some of his techniques. I told him about the shoes. He said, I learned that one years ago. And it's great. I do that. And he incorporates the verbal and just the direct eye contact. I'm coming in. You're going to need this. You're going to want this. And here's why. It's a pattern interrupt in many cases. So that was when I was young. I would say the next hardest job of selling that I took on was Smile and Dial. I was a stockbroker with Merrill Lynch. And I would pick up the phone, call Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, my name is Mitch Carson, and I'm calling to earn your investment business. Right to the point. No other fancy words. It was, this is what I have. And I would continue. I would pause for just a second and say, today, you're going to want to learn about whatever stock I'm pitching, whatever it was. Fruit of the Loom has been trending at $52 a share, and it's poised for a spike any day now. How many shares can you handle? Right there. How many lots of 100 can you handle? And it's assumption. And did I get through? Sometimes. Enough to where I made a living. Did I get hung up on? Often. And then when I would have, and I've got to be careful with all this gender stuff that's going on. Let's say the secretary answers. And let's assume it's an identified female, so I don't get in trouble by the left wingers. Okay? Let's assume. And she answers the phone and says, I'm looking for Dr. Smith. And she says, what's this about? I said, I'm calling him about a personal matter. And she'll say, well, I'm his secretary, or I'm his first, you got to talk to me first. What is this personal matter? I said, if he wanted you to know about all your personal matters, he would inform you, wouldn't he? Put me through. That's how aggressive I got. And sometimes it was his wife. And then his wife would go in, hand the phone, and he might have been in the middle of a procedure. There's this asshole on the phone who says he's got a personal mouth. She thinks he's calling about him being a cheater or something along those lines. I've had those reactions. And hello, this is Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith, I'm calling to earn your investment business. I'm in the middle of a procedure. I know. I respect that. And Fruit of the Loom is trending right now at $52 a share, and it's projected to go to an all-time high of 60. Get in now. How many shares can you handle? Now, did it work? Sometimes it worked, Drewbie. Most of the time it didn't. Just don't ever effing call this office again. Then you're going to miss out, and you're going to stay exactly where you are with your wealth and your portfolio, or lack of wealth, should I say. How many can you handle? I would shame them and turn right around and go for it again. This is hardcore. And guess what? I did quite well with that strategy. Did I piss people off? You betcha. I'm there to eat, and it's after my brief greet. I'm going to greet, and then I'm going to eat. And I upset a lot of people. It wasn't easy. I got to tell you, some days I thought, geez, maybe I am an asshole, but I'm a rich one. I drive a BMW.
The Wolf of Wall Streets, like all these movies, the Boiler Rooms, they're based on real stories. And it's not to say that there aren't nuances to sales. That's what I love about the industry, right? Is everyone has their style, their tonality, their cadence. There's a couple things I wrote down that I really, really enjoyed. One of them is the power of the pause.
Yes.
Right? You give someone that second to let some things start stewing in their mind, and then you kick right back into it, and they're like, oh, shit. All right, they got my attention. Like, I'm thinking about the thing, but not like, all right, what are we talking about, boss? Get me in line here. Tell me what I need to know. And it's like you said, there are times where you learn to push, and there are times when you kind of like, oh, fading panda. I'm just going to back up a little bit, release some tension from the situation. That way they feel a little more comfort. And then we get right back into, okay, now here's what the next step is. Here's the next part of the conversation. And then the NLP side is really powerful because, like you said, there's the body language, which I forget the exact statistic, but I think it's 57%, somewhere around there, of your conversation is body language related. So if you're on the doors, and nonverbal, right? And so when you're on the doors or you're in front of someone, that's a major part of communication because you can be saying a really nice thing, but if you got a resting bitch face on or you have like a shitty look, that's the energy that you're giving off, and that's what's coming across. That's why so many people talk about that. But the other side of that is, as you're using that nonverbal, listening to the verbal and understanding what kind of communicator are they. Are they someone who uses their hands because they like to visualize things? Are they someone who wants to hear more about what you have to say so that they can make an educated understanding? Or, is it a mix of feelings where they want you to kind of touch on those emotional triggers? There's so many little nuances that as you progress, as you mess up, as you learn and grow, you can develop into what becomes your signature style, your way about making sales. And so, Mitch, I would love to know kind of for you over the years, what would you say has become kind of like your sales superpower? Like, what's the thing that you do best when it comes to sales?
Okay, I've cut my teeth on door-to-door. Then I went to phone one-to-one. The world opened up dramatically, Drewbie, when I embraced professional speaking and started selling one-to-many. Mm-hmm. And since then, there's no way I would look back and go one-to-one. I know the power of a crowd and the power of motivating 2 or 3 people to start moving to the back of the room or taking specific action. Then you cause that avalanche effect of everybody with that FOMO, fear of missing out. And I think the power of a crowd is something I learned so powerful and necessary if you want to get to the upper echelons of selling. Let me progress further and share. Then I went to the big leagues because I became a home shopping network pitchman in Florida, sold 1 to 5 million, and using the power of testimonials, very important. Selling through other people, vicarious selling, testimonial, social proof selling produces much more than no proof. There are people that have argued with me about this point. I said, Oh, I don't use testimonials. I just give a good presentation. And I said, well, let's compare results, Buster. Because if I have somebody that looks and smells and talks just like the intended audience, how easy is it for them to relate to that person than if there's nobody to relate to? And then I learned the power of infomercials. I was an infomercial pitchman, selling products on on TV and then recorded TV, 15 seconds, 30, 1 minute, 2 minutes, selling products over late night television. It's not as prevalent as it once was, but it was a very big business when I was doing it. And it supplemented what I did on Home Shopping Network. And the techniques are evergreen. What do I mean by evergreen? Include social proof. Use a compelling hook. People, oh, there's this list of hooks for TikTok videos. Buddy, this science has been around for ages. You didn't invent something new. Dude with your, with the little Band-Aid on the nose that people follow. And, are you an innovator? You're a good marketer, but what you're talking about, I've heard 1,000 times before. Good information, solid information, but there isn't anything new I've heard in decades. It's a reminder of very good techniques, solid techniques, but selling from the stage is the epitome of selling what you've learned in the earlier days and had to adopt, and then selling on a one-to-many basis. And the skills weren't necessarily transferable immediately. What was transferable were the feelings of failing a lot until I got better, failing and getting through that pain and discomfort, working through it to then realize the result. Just like when we went to the gym the first time, I was a skinny kid doing arm curls. I didn't have any biceps. I had 12-inch arms or something, very small. And it took going through the pain, discomfort of the lactic acid buildup until finally, oh, geez, Judy over there gave me a look like she wanted to squeeze my bicep because I'd gone through the pain. So what did I do? Judy was damn cute. I continued honing and working all corners of my bicep muscle to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and attracted not just Judy, Jane came into play. Oh, did I tell you about Jill and Marge?
Mr. Playboy.
Yeah, well, it happened because I went to the gym. The results of selling, once you go through the pain of repetition and failing a lot, yield the same result. It's a principle of practice your way continually. There's a great sign or banner it's called Lifelong Learning in Singapore. I've done quite a few events in Singapore. And there was a book written by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. Inside the book, the one takeaway I had, major takeaway, was 10,000 hours. Do something for 10,000 hours equals mastery. You can suck at it for 9,000 hours, but there's something magical about 10,000 hours of doing a specific task, which then raises your level of unconscious competence to where you can't unlearn it. You become so competent simply through the power of repetition and possible frequency, which is another overlay in doing that, where you become better and better and better. You just have to go through the pain. I happen to be a 6-degree black belt in Taekwondo, Drewbie, and in the beginning, I couldn't fight. I wasn't very good. Got my ears boxed. It took time of getting punched, kicked, breaking fingers, toes, bruises, black eyes, broken noses, 6 of them in total, to where I knew how to not block with my face anymore. It took 10,000 hours of getting beat on and applying a whooping as well. All of that makes somebody better. You can look at all the skills. Joe Montana, arguably one of the best quarterbacks ever, talked about that. And I'm sure if Tom Brady were asked the same question, he might give a similar answer. What it takes to become great. There are no overnight successes that I've met in my life.
No, and, I talk a lot about the value of time, and one of the things I always tell people is, here, you want to figure out your time, you got to figure out how much you made last year and divide it by 2,000. Because if you were a normal average person, you'd work 2,000 hours a year, right? Well, if you think about it, if it takes you 10,000 hours to become a master of something, and you're working 2,000 hours a year on just basic math, it's going to take you 5 years to become a master. What I typically see, most people give up in year 3, year 4, because they haven't reached some high level of success. They haven't made it big yet. And it's just simple math. You're giving up too soon. You haven't hit 10,000 hours. And that's the thing, is you can speed up this process. You want to be there faster? Guess what? You're going to have to work more than 2,000 hours, guys. You're going to have to devote that time to beating on your craft, to getting hung up on, to getting doors slammed in your face, to being told no, so that you can get to a point where statistically you can close 40% of the people you talk to instead of 15% of the people you talk to.
Which is a major life-changing number for most.
A massive, massive difference. But you have to continue to show up. You have to keep doing the reps, and you have to be willing to learn and make mistakes as you go so that you can improve. And one of the things you said is that, there's nothing new. There's no new strategy. There's no new anything fancy. I read a book called Steal Like an Artist, and it basically just says, hey, there's nothing new. Go and take a little from this, a little from that. What do you like? What do you don't like? Mix it all up and make it work for you. And that's what's going to make you special. That's your unique gift that's going to make you stand out in the world. And so, Mitch, man, I've had just an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. And I'm sure we could spend the whole day chatting together if we wanted to. But let's say someone's been listening in. They're really enjoying the show and what you've had to say. What's the best way for them to come and find you, to learn more about what you have going on? I mean, I know you do a lot to help people, so tell us more about that.
Well, I work today. I've traveled the world selling from the stage, 63 countries. And today happens to be my 64th birthday.
Well, happy birthday.
Thanks, bud. I'm nearing my swan song stage. So I've closed down I used to speak weekly and travel the globe. I got 3.5 million miles in the air.
Golly.
Today, I work strictly as a publicist, training people because of my years on TV, how to get covered on network television here in the Las Vegas market. And I guarantee my results. And if they want to get interviewed on live TV, which is the ultimate platform, no disrespect to any other platform out there, but getting on network television where they've spent and invested hundreds of millions of dollars in their brand, to be piggybacked onto that makes total sense for smart people. And if you are a smart person who wants to grow to the next level and invest in yourself, get interviewedguaranteed.com/meet with Mitch. Get interviewedguaranteed.com/meet with Mitch. Did I say that twice? Let's go 3. Get interviewedguaranteed.com/meet with Mitch for your free consultation. If you are serious about getting on television. That's what I offer today. I no longer travel the globe beyond maybe 3-4 times a year. Like I'm heading to Singapore in November because that's where I still make my most amount of money. I'm new to America again since September. I just moved back. I was overseas for 13 years. So now I'm back. How's my American? You can understand me okay, Drewbie?
I'd say you're pretty fluent. I don't know, maybe a little accent here or there, but that's the beauty of this industry is, again, you can do it from anywhere. Doesn't matter what personality, what background type. If you are committed and you're willing to do what it takes, sales can be the greatest industry of all time. And what I love about 100%. What you said is that, and we were kind of talking about this before we started recording the show, but your brand is what people say about you, when you're not in the room. Getting on live TV, having other major brands talking about you, sharing your story. I mean, to be honest, this is what builds a reputation. This is what allows you to step into that next level of growth and serving your community, helping provide your product, your service to the world. So, Mitch, I think that's pretty daggone cool that you've pretty much put together a guaranteed way to help someone who's in position to help more people get in front of that audience. So definitely make sure you guys go follow Mitch, check him out. I got one last question for you though.
Sure.
Because let's say they're not at that point where they're like, oh my gosh, I got, all these things going on. Maybe they're new. Maybe we're really lucky, Mitch, and we've got that someone who's just getting into sales. They find this show and this is the first thing they've done to invest in themselves on that next step. What piece of advice would you give them to be successful in the sales industry?
The same advice I would tell anybody in any industry. You're either all in or not. And if you were all in, listen to all your podcasts. Listen to all of Drewbie's podcasts. Listen to other sales podcasts. Listen, you've been a great host, by the way. Listen to YouTube videos on the topic. Immerse yourself. You're either in or you're not. Because if you're half in, you're going to get half results. Read books on the topic. And enlarge your growth. Work on your diction. Work on your pronunciation. Remove all filler words of so, you like, right. No, I hate it when people say right. I say left, and I'm leaving. No, it's not right. It's demeaning to say that. Record yourself. That's the biggie. Record yourself. There's no greater critic. You could pay me my rate to listen to you, but you could pay yourself the time investment of listening to yourself on 5 of your sales calls and then deconstruct. Find out where you made your mistakes, where the conversation failed, and you'll understand. And through that feeling that'll exist inside your heart and in your brain, you'll self-correct. Very few will listen to themselves on record. So valuable. When I trained people for speaking, we're watching this, record every event and go back and reconstruct it. Deconstruct it, I should say. Deconstruct, then you rebuild. You make it better. But without the analysis of self, you'll still grow, but you'll grow faster and more effectively when you give yourself a hard look.
That is so dang true, Mitch, and I appreciate you sharing that because, my wife and I went to see Pauly Shore do a stand-up a few years ago.
Yep.
And I'll never forget watching him go through his set, and anytime, like if you were paying attention, you would notice that he had a recorder on this side, a recorder on this side, and as he was going, if he, landed flat on a joke or kind of got stumbled, he would filler joke, make more laughs, not enough laughs. And he would literally just say this in the middle of his set so quickly that most people probably didn't even think about it. But as a master, watching another master at work, it was beautiful to see that he was still practicing
and testing,
recording and testing and figuring it out. And man, that is some absolutely sage advice. Record yourself, listen, deconstruct. You will be your own worst critic because if you listen close, you'll know exactly where you said, what you said, and why you said it the wrong way. So, Mitch, thank you for sharing, man. Thank you so much for your time. I am truly grateful for the wisdom that you shared. What's that website again if they want to come and check you out?
GetInterviewedGuaranteed.com. So I guarantee interviews.com/meet with Mitch. We'll see you there.
You guys heard the man. Go check him out. Follow us. Share this episode on social media. Tag us. Tell your friends. Tell other people in sales. Tell the world. Because it does not matter where you're from or what you've been through. If you start in sales, you can create an absolutely amazing life. Today's guest, Mitch Carson, no better example of that. This man is changing the game. So go check him out. Share this episode. And remember, if you've got an awesome sales story, you want to share it with the world, head over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send us your information. I'd love to have you on the show because this is the greatest industry of all time. You know what to do next. Go call the damn leads. We'll see you guys on the next one.